Hey everybody, welcome back to the Arkansas Soybean Promotion Board's Soybean Podcast. Today we're following back up with Mike Daniels. He's the Professor of Soil and Water Specialist at Extension, and we're at Dabb's Discovery Farm.
This was in response to a lot of concern over agriculture contributing to the Gulf of Mexico. And when I talked to farmers about the concerns, they said, we think we're doing a good job being stewards, but we realized a lot of these decisions about the Gulf of Mexico were being made by models, large-scale models, and we didn't have a lot of data from actual farms, and the best way we knew to collect that data would be at the edge of the field. But when we got out to Terry's, we realized very quickly this was kind of a safe haven for what we were wanting to do, because Terry has no groundwater in this area. He does, but it's about 1,000 feet deep down in the Sparta, and it's unaffordable really to use as irrigation. And so they use everything in engineering this farm, so they capture every drop of water that runs off into a tailwater ditch, and then they circulate it back to the reservoir, and they use that, recycle that water to irrigate with. And so we knew if we were seeing a lot of things run off, we could at least say, they're running off, but he's keeping it on farm. So that's how the program kind of got started. And it is a farmer-led program. We just want to be able to document that what they're doing to show that they're good stewards. Now the program has expanded into much more than just collecting data. It's really become much more of an educational program. So they started monitoring the Gulf of Mexico for this dead zone where nutrients promote plant growth in the Gulf. Those plants die off. Microorganisms degrade those. Those little bugs take the oxygen out of the water. As the water temperature heats up, so does the dissolved oxygen goes down. So they've been doing it since 1985. The big question is was this hypoxic zone always been there? Are we making it worse? We don't know, because we really don't have records back before 1985. But they released an annual report, and what we found is years of heavy rainfall in the Mississippi River Basin, which includes 27 states. We get kind of a dilution factor, and then other years, if we don't get a dilution factor, we get a much bigger zone, dead zone, because more nutrients coming in. So what I'm trying to say is the size of that dead zone can fluctuate depending on the upstream weather conditions.
Well, and farmers would be the easy target, right?
Yeah, agriculture is always going to be a big target because we're a big land use category. But this is where Discovery Farms is helping us better understand what's happening on the farm.
So on this farm, all the water's reused and recycled. How does that impact it doesn't necessarily impact that.
It can, because we're recycling that water. We're not turning it loose downstream. But when you look at our groundwater situation and the critical groundwater decline, in fact, this area does not have the shallow alluvial aquifer that a lot of farmers use for irrigation.
Right.
So they had to build reservoirs and depend on reservoirs and surface water. And they had to make decisions about whether to finish off their rice or water their soybeans. And,
I remember that.
And this is really helping them now. And these programs in fact, one of our biggest partners in this whole program is NRCS. Now we're not just monitoring, we're looking at different conservation practices and how that might impact. If we do it long enough, is it going to begin to pay for itself?
Right. That's putting pencil to paper, trying to figure out long-term what that investment's going to.
But I also think it's been by the realization that EPA realizes that this is a very difficult situation to regulate, and that you could put a lot of regulations out that might not work and could be a hardship for the farmers. And so, and this program has helped our farmers have a voice and a platform with EPA. In fact, in this very shop, 2 years ago in December, EPA, at the invitation of Terry Dabbs, imagine that, actually came down and made a big announcement and had a field day with at that time, Chief Wheeler of EPA. But they came down and gave some money to the state, to the Arkansas Department of Agriculture for water-related issues. And that all came about because Terry was willing to say, come on down and visit my farm. And the regional administrator in Dallas called the chief in Washington, and they all came down. And he actually went out to where we were at this morning looking at our sites and looked at and asked a lot of good questions. So I think opening up the dialogue and getting people together to talk about the issues is really helpful, and it's healthy because I think when people like the chief and others get out on a farm like Terry's, they see the extent, they see the investment in trying to be good stewards, and they realize they're not haphazardly doing this. Their livelihood depends on the sustainability of two natural resources, primarily soil and water.
Yeah, and you do have to see it to understand it, to get a real appreciation for this, for the way this is set up between the big reservoir and the addition to the reservoir and all the detailed water recovery systems, the dishes and the plumbing. It's a huge investment on their part.
Huge investment, probably over $2 million. And Brent, people tell me, well, not every farm's set up this way, and I said, not yet. But water is going to become so precious. Every farm will do this as standard practice because we have to have water to grow our crops. We have to have water to survive. We cannot manage and handle the risk associated with dry land agriculture in this state.
It may become the standard. And it seems to me like, too, if that is the case, that neighbors can sort of share that infrastructure and by extension that cost, perhaps.
Right, and I think what you're seeing is a lot of people trying to create market-based incentives for crops grown under different sustainability regimes.
Right.
And that there may become niche or special markets for our farmers. And that's where I'm talking about. We can resist this, or we can prepare our farmers and get them ready to benefit from those things if they're coming and it's out of our control. And so that's the approach we take with the Discovery Farms. We're trying to help the farmers find things that they can and can't do that are profitable, that will put them in a benefit to maybe market their products for a more premium price based on the fact that they're recognized as a sustainable producer.
It's almost like having a stamp, like some premium,
right.
A pretty good motivator.
But Brent, you going back to bringing people out to the farm, we've held probably more farm tours on Discovery Farms on this particular farm. On these emotional issues, it's probably the most effective way that we have. So we have a lot of tourists, but I find people who keep up with these issues, water quality and natural resource issues, but have never really been on a farm. It really opens their eyes as to the practical challenges and the challenges and the things going on. And I think the big resentment farmers had against EPA at one time is EPA wanted to make the decisions for them without allowing them to be a part of the solution process. And I think EPA, from programs like Discovery Farm, is starting to understand that it's probably going to be more effective if we invite farmers to be a part of the solution. This program, it doesn't happen just because we decided to have a program. It's not just a Division of Agriculture program. We have key partners, but there's a lot of people to think. NRCS provides a tremendous amount of funding for us to evaluate conservation practices. The commodity board, such as the Soybean Promotion Board, they fund our technician every year for us. We greatly appreciate that. The Walton Family Foundation, we get some money from private foundations. We get it from the state. Surprisingly, we get money from EPA. We get it from a lot of different sources, and we need all those people. But most of all, this program is successful because our farmers had the wherewithal to say, we need to step up and we need to document that we are being good stewards, not just say it. And so we really think our Discovery farmers, but we think the farmers on the Soybean Promotion Board that see this as an important program to their farming and their future in farming.
Well, it's a very cool project. Thanks for your time today. Thanks for updating us since the years that we've been here, and have a good rest of your day.
All right.
Thanks for listening to the Arkansas Soybean Promotion Board's Soybean Podcast. We hope you'll follow us on Twitter at Arkansas Soybean and even more resources at themiraclebean.com.